Welcome in, everybody. Hope you're doing well. We got the full crew back, Mr. Rod and Kenny, in the same room, which is a great thing. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go over basically mistakes real estate photographers make, and we were kind of planning what that was going to look like. And so we're going to kind of break it down by like revenue threshold. And so if you're here and you're above a revenue threshold when we're talking about one, feel free to put the mistakes you think you made in that period in. It'll kind of be like a crowdsource thing. I don't have like, some huge thing written out. We're just going to go through the stages and talk about those. I was thinking actually, Kenny and I were on a meeting earlier and we were talking about this. And I think one of the, if I look at the mistakes that I made and then the things that I did right that allowed my business to grow the most, and then I look at other businesses, bigger and smaller than mine, I think that a lot of times the skill of growing a business and most of the mistakes are around what you should have said no to that you didn't say no to. And I think that's opposite of what a lot of people think. Obviously, you have to say yes to a lot of things when you're starting your business. But if I look at least my business journey so far, which is small compared to many and big compared to some, my big unlocks were like around saying no to stuff. And it's like at micro things, and then it gets bigger and bigger, right? So, maybe at the start, like my first big one is, and I'm not saying anybody should do this, but my first big one was saying no to college. Like the second that I decided to not be in college anymore and drop out and go all into my business grew. So it was like a lot of the mistakes are the things that we do, not the things we don't do. And so I think that'll be kind of a common theme as we go through the stages. So like first it was saying no to that, right? I can go all into my business. And then the next stage was eventually saying no to editing, which sounds silly because everybody outsourced, but they didn't at the time. And so I outsourced and I'm like, what the heck? And then my business grew, right? And then I get stuck at another level. And then I said no to shooting and I started hiring photographers. And then I said no to doing the admin work. And so it's always that next thing that kind of grows your business. And so funny enough, I think a lot of the things, yeah, Dave said micro is clapping about the college thing. Funny enough, a lot of the things I think are no's, are things you shouldn't do. And so I guess we'll start with the 0 to 2K range. So the 0 to 2K a month revenue range is for people just starting. So if you're past this stage, comment some mistakes you made. Kenny, Rod, which one of you guys wants to jump in with some initial mistakes during this period?
Focusing too much on the stuff that won't actually create a business. For example, like the website, the business name, that's a huge one right there that I've seen a lot on coaching students, just figuring out that the first initial thing, which is the name, business cards, what should they be doing, and all those things that like take it step by step, but also like have urgency with it, like depending on like how bad you want this. And obviously if we're talking about zero income, just starting this, the biggest mistake is for you not to start and be wondering like, when is the best time to start this?
Like waiting to launch. That's my favorite.
Yes.
When people are like, it's February 20th today, they're like, oh yeah, I set a launch date. I'm like, oh yeah? Like, yeah, April 1st. Huh? Like today's launch. What do you mean launch date? This isn't like, you're not gonna do a ribbon cutting, you and nobody, not to put a downer on it, but it's not like you're opening like a new like chain restaurant in an area where everybody knows you. It's like you're gonna be sad cutting that ribbon by yourself. And that's okay. It just, today is launch day. I think like a big one that really hurts people. Yeah, as Nate just said there, today's launch day. A lot of people, Nate's built an incredible business, Chris as well. It's just there's no reason you're not starting today, because it's not like you had to build a factory. It's not like you had to do anything that would require waiting. And a lot of times waiting is the problem. And I think one way waiting kind of manifests, maybe a second mistake as well, as practicing and like just really thinking you need to be perfect before you start shooting. And that keeps people in the zero part of the 0 to 2K a lot. Rod, anything on your end that you can think of that comes to mind for like that initial stage, or you get to talk to a lot of people that are at starting, so like any big like mistakes you see them making?
Yeah, I might repeat something Kenny said too, but like he said, focusing on a lot of things that don't need to, a big time is people focusing on a lot of things I'll hear them doing. I'm like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like, it doesn't really sound like what needs to be focused on. So focusing on the right things, but how do you know until you know?
Yeah.
That, or until someone tells you. So that, and then staring at competition, know your competition, but don't stare at them, as Jared says here. So I think a lot of wrapping up in competition, super like a lot more than they should, is a thing I'll see them talking about doing and really, really concerned about, and more than they need to be, versus it's just a lot more than the usual market research, right? What else? Like in the
The
beginning,
competition's a good one because it feels like it's so scary at that stage. For whatever reason, the bigger you get, you think you'd fear competition more because you have more to lose. You have more like realistic competition because it doesn't take very many clients to make we're talking about 0 to 2K a month right now. It takes very few clients to do that. So competition's not going to stop you from doing that. That's when it's at the lowest, right? If you think about it, it's like it tends to occupy most of the mind, which is makes sense, but it prevents people. It's like back to the core. Like, I guess if we could sum up 0 to 2K, it'd be waiting.
Yeah.
And then bleeding through, a little bit. Like they'll be like, I messaged thousands of agents. I called all these people and nothing's working. And it's just, they're not really making data-driven moves. It's more emotion-driven moves. And we might think all of our agents, like we might have one bad experience with an agent and say things like, oh, my agents are rough, but mathematically 2% are rough and 98% are great.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of not tracking enough and not making data-based decisions.
Well, it's almost like you don't have enough data
as well. Yeah.
It's like you
or
don't
lack
have enough
thereof data. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I love what Rod's saying. I want to dive in a little more is basically what people will say to us all the time is, yeah, in my area, agents don't hire professional photos or photographers. And it's like, and then you're like, oh, interesting. And you don't want to just be like, you're wrong. That's not a good conversation with anybody. Right. So you don't say you're wrong. And then, so you ask and you're like, what makes you think that? And they're like, well, my friend Ted's told me that. Ted's an agent. And it's like, well, yeah, Ted also sells one house every decade. So like maybe Ted is not the best person to ask about advice about what all agents do, right? And then how you fix that is if you only have that data point, your brain is of course going to say nobody hires them because you looked at one and they didn't. So the way you do that is it's not saying what data do I have, it's what data do I need to find. And so the first thing we do, like with looking at someone's market, and this isn't going to be all 0 to 2K stuff. So if you're at a higher level, hold on, we're going to move through the revenue ranks. But what do? We go find data. We look at tons of markets. So we kind of know our first instinct is, well, let's look at your market. And then we look at Zillow. We see how many agents there are. We look at the photos, see if they are professional, see how many listings there are, see the area. And so it's like the things you don't know that really mess you up. You think are true, but are not.
Exactly. I remember this was like, it's just triggering a thought I had with a call. It when y'all talk, it reminds me of like a call, like a flashback.
A specific person.
And there was a guy in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where Mike is, right?
Yes.
So there was someone in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I knew about Mike's story and what he achieved. It's the biggest results I've seen out of any industry I've ever been to. So it's like, so it's like hypey sounding, but real. But we know he's in Knoxville, right? Yeah. So this guy I was talking to on the phone was like, I talked to one agent and they said the area wasn't good. Right. And then I know, on the other hand, I know the best results I've seen in my life of someone building a business from the ground up. And the fastest was Mike in Knoxville. So I'm like, I was like, I need you to believe me somehow that that's not true. And don't trust this person you talk to. I was like trying to say that nicely. You can't like say that because it could be a family member.
That is such a good scenario.
I'm like, sometimes I just want to be like, listen, it's not, you get a big enough sample size to make those data,
well, okay, that goes back to
just one person's not how they, and I think a lot of agents naturally have a habit of being like, oh, the market's terrible, don't come in, please. Even if it's a photographer, they still are in the habit of just almost like subconsciously not wanting to just say the market's not good, even if it's great. I've seen that kind of happen too. So you just kind of don't know until you don't know. You don't know.
Well, and that's like Nate said, get a mentor early. And that's not me saying get coaching. I think you should, and we'd love to work with you.
Coaching plug. Come on, man.
But there's many types of mentors, right? So like, even just watching a YouTube video where 3 of us right now, we're talking about experience we had, that's a form of mentorship, right? And you want to look for that. I think, a lot of things. One thing that I said no to was relying on and requiring my own experience to be the thing that taught me. And I've said that a lot. But like the first 5 years, I wasn't really into like personal development. Like I didn't listen to a lot of audiobooks or podcasts, and I didn't go to events. I didn't do coaching. I thought that was like, you don't do that. I was like, no one understands my industry. So silly. But that is what can give you that perspective, whatever format it takes, right? That's popular for people to talk about getting a mentor. It's like, what does that mean? Well, it's just somebody that can have another perspective, and hopefully one that's based in them having done something about what you're trying to do. And so just a big hack, because imagine like, actually, it's so interesting that Knoxville one's a good one to talk about. And that'll be the last thing. We'll move on to the next revenue group. Imagine the downside of believing that. Like we have a Mike, and he's built an incredible business, like $100,000 months, right? Fast, like crazy, way exponentially faster than I grew Norman and Young in that exact market where someone was saying it's not a good market. And so that just shows you how, like, if you believed it wasn't good a market, you're like, okay, I'm not going to start a business. What an opportunity you could have missed out on, right? So interesting. And so that's, I guess the biggest thing is you're during this stage is like waiting and not having a clear vision of what things could be, because you can't, right? Like waiting is you're never going to get there. And then a clear vision you can't expect to have because you haven't been there. And so you have to kind of borrow that vision from somebody else, somebody that's done it. And I think that's why like looking up to people that have built something is great.
What you said right there is so profound, because I feel like it's why I love doing this and connecting people to coaching and connecting people to building businesses and bettering businesses. Is you always wonder like what an individual could have done in their life and what they could have achieved if that, like, oh, it's not going to work, was not a thing in their head. Like if that just was turned off.
Well, it's
like,
funny.
What
like
would have happened? What could they achieve? And it's like you start to wonder that. So that's why we do what we do. So it's like you try to help people facilitate that potential there. So it's like it's just interesting to see the best results I've ever seen, and then have someone say my area is not good when I know it's like, yeah, it's that perspective. Different.
I'm not smiling on that call. They'd be like, "What are you smiling?"
It was an email afterwards. I remember it was on the call a little bit. It was an email afterwards, and it was like some emailing. You know, it was a long time ago. It was actually probably a year ago. But
this is interesting too. This is like exactly what we're talking about, just summed up better. If you're convinced it's not going to work, like you're not going to do it.
Oh, I spoke to David earlier on a call earlier today as well. Shout out David, has some huge weeks recently. So
nice, congrats.
That's exactly it. It's you're right either way, right? But yeah. Next stage is what?
To next stage. There's a unlimited amount of ways you can break this down. I think 2 to 8K is a good range. My thought on why is because, like you could say let's do 2 to 10, for time's sake, 2 to 10. Over 10, you really need to start bringing on some help. 10K a month in the form of like a VA would be a great idea. And so we'll kind of leave that to the next section. So 2 to 10, my biggest thing, I think this is one, I mean, maybe we'll spend some time on it, but 2 to 10 is you get busy with the photography and you stop doing the thing that gets the clients, is generally people's biggest mistake. So they'll start to get busier. And there's 2 ways this happens. One is legitimate. I mean, you're starting to get clients. You're making between $2,000 and $10,000 a month. You're like, this is awesome, right? I mean, how many people do you know that make 8 to 10K a month in their own business? Not a lot. So you're starting to feel like, wow, this is going well. You're starting to feel like you have something to lose. And so you want to take care of your clients, which is awesome. And so because of that, naturally, you're going to have to spend more time shooting and doing the work. The problem is you really do have to make sure you're also still reaching out to new clients if you want to push past that level. And so the thought error is you don't spend enough time on that. But then the other thing is that's usually the phase where people, because they really want to keep their clients, they start really leaning into like better quality during that stage and chasing that. And it's an interesting thing because it's like, sure, you are going to have to devote extra time taking care of your clients, but then you do have some free time that you get to decide. And that's, the definition of strategy is you saying, with the limited amount of time that I have, what am I going to do? What's the best thing? The strategy that people take is, let me improve my quality so I don't lose my clients. And it's like, yes, you need to have a certain level of quality, but like more than that is not going to get you more clients than using that time more wisely. And that's why you see people the tale of 2 cities or whatever in the same market. One will blow up and one will not. And it's like, what'd they do? They had a different strategy. I mean, they probably had the same gear. Maybe one spent, probably the one with less money spent more on gear, funny enough. Anyway, they had the same market. They had the same opportunity. They were like literally in the same area. And how can one have 10 times the result? The difference is strategy. So this is the stage where strategy really starts to play in. And the strategy has to be, hey, I need to step out from my business, be unemotional, and say, what is the most important thing now to grow my business? It's going to be getting more clients, right? You can optimize your clients, but if you're optimizing working with 5 clients, even if you double your average order value, you still have a microscopic business. So it's not time for optimize. It's time for get more. Anything you guys want to add at this stage?
Well, I was going to say, like, they start hating their business and their clients just because now they've changed the way that they do things, that how they got to 10K. And now they're thinking like, I have to improve my craft and I have to do this. But then turns out they hate doing that stuff, but they feel like they have to do it in order to continue that success. And then they start waking up just hating their lives. And that,
they get mad at their clients. They're like, I'm doing all this stuff. My clients don't care. It's like, they never told you they wanted it, dude.
Exactly.
Well, interesting point you said with the line of which to start hiring a VA, hire your first part-time photographer, all of that. I think a big thing I'll see when I talk to people in the 2 to 8K range is that they do have a good bit of, they have like, some people have, I've had one person that's at that range have like 3 photographers.
Oh,
Situationally, sometimes there's situations that calls for that earlier. Yes. But it's the data is it's hard with that we have found, but it's,
so they're
they'll
scaling
get
too
busy.
early?
They'll get busy and then think the answer is hiring, but it's really no, the answer is make your business efficient first and work on the parts of the business and solve things first. All right. And then you can actually scale a little bit more.
No, well, that's
Right?
the
And
unlock.
then they just hire too early, or they bring in someone into a chaotic mess and think that's going to solve it. And now they're just doing 2 chaotic messes. And they think, I'll have people say, I try to hire, but it just ended up being more stressful than not. I'm like, it's just, there's
You know what it is? And
I
this
think
is like
in that stage, they do hire. I know we're going to talk about hiring next, but they sometimes will get busy and think the answer is hiring versus how can I make my business more efficient? They'll say, oh, this is the most efficient it can be. And we've never seen that to be the case when someone comes back there. It's like, there's a lot of room.
Bad. It's like, I don't want to use like too stupid of an example, but it's like, imagine I'm holding this water bottle and I'm shaking it and I'm shooting, right? And you're like, man, I can't shake this water bottle while I'm shooting anymore. I need to hire someone to shake it. And then someone just goes, why do you need to shake the water bottle?
Exactly.
Like, that's genuinely what it looks like from our perspective a lot. It's like, well, don't do that then. I used to, and I'm
doing so many things they don't need to be doing out here. They'll say, I do this and that. Then I'm like, they're not focusing on the levers that they need to be focusing on. There's a million things we can do in this business. There's a million approaches, but there's the ones that work, and it's, you don't know until you find that out or told it. So they're just a lot of frivolous things that they're doing that they feel is like, this is my edge. This is it, but it is, and that's easy. That's not like that. This is a blanketed response, obviously. So it's like it certain applications with different people, situations, and all that. But I'll hear that a lot sometimes. Is that it's just not a lot of focus on the big levers that are going to get them to the goals they tell me they want to get to, and all that.
Yeah, I love the follow-up question. Just basically asking like what the inefficiencies are. So like I'll list some that come to mind that I see a lot, and you too feel free to jump in. But if you look at the shooting process, so it'd be like what the people do in the morning with their shoots from the day before. So they spend a lot of time quality control checking their shoots and like changing little stuff that doesn't matter. It like became a joke at our company. I would like sit there and I would tweak like the exposure up like zero difference if someone looked at the photos, right? So it takes me way longer to deliver photos. So I deliver the photos, right? Then I go to the shoot and I'm like, well, in case the agent wants every shot they could possibly take into this house, even though they only ordered a 25 package, I'm going to leave the house with 60 photos. And it's like, well, it took me ages to shoot them, right? So that's inefficiency. Then I get home at the end of the day and I've done 4 shoots and I shot 60 photos at every shoot. And now I have to spend a bunch of time deleting because I overshot. So now here's the best part. It's not just that I spend time deleting. Now when I'm deleting, I'm overthinking the crap out of it. And I'm like, which angle? And it's like this 2 angles of living room that the agent's not even going to look at, right? And so then you did that and you're like, man, I worked hard today. And it's like, I'm saying this, I feel I did this for literally years. And I wish I could go back and like, no, Eli, you didn't work hard. You worked like an idiot today. You did so much stuff that actually didn't matter. It goes back to like shaking the water bottle while you're shooting. And just, I think everybody, this is something where you could do this with my business now. You could do this with anybody's business. Sometimes just outside eyes, like, and whether it's a business buddy you have or a coach or whatever, like just looking at your business, I did the stupidest of this all. Like we had a time where we shot with something called a Cam Ranger. And this is just how inefficiency builds. So we shoot 3 bracket right now and recommend that. And most people shoot 3 brackets, an underexposed, a middle, and an exposure. It's blended together by an editor and it gets you a good final photo. Sounds complicated. If it sounds complicated to you, like just watch my other YouTube videos. It's pretty simple. It just takes a second to learn. So we shoot 3 brackets, right? Well, I wanted to get better window views because I thought they weren't good enough. And so I realized that in order to shoot better window views, I had to shoot 5 brackets. So I shot more images spread out over a greater range, right? Well, here's the problem with shooting 5 bracket. Most cameras, the camera I had, and at the time, they didn't shoot 5 brackets in the camera. They would only do 3. So if you wanted to shoot 5, you had to get a $300 piece of gear that goes on the top of the camera that acts like a brain and plugs in. But then you had to control that brain with an iPad. And so I'm like, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get an iPad. And Aaron, my brother, is going to hold the iPad and change the settings while I shoot. You see the stupidity here, right? Like I created this whole problem and then I solved it in the stupidest way. And it's funny because it's like crazy when you think about it, but that's what it looks like in so many people's business. So both of us would go to shoots. It was convenient sometimes because he could turn on the lights on one side, I could turn on the lights on the other, but we're both driving the same. It's just so silly. And so that's a dramatic example of it. But in this stage, I love that Rod brought that up, and we'll move to the next one after this, but it's just adding stuff that doesn't matter. It's bad strategy. It's focusing on things like better window views instead of just more clients. So that brings us up to 10K a month. I'd say the next one would be 10 to 20K, and then there'll be some bigger jumps after that.
I was like, wait, what's the time check though? I know you got.
Oh yeah, I have to leave at unfortunately 4:45 today, so we have 20
so we have
minutes.
20 more minutes.
Yeah.
Dang, that's like gonna be. I'm gonna blink and it's gonna be done.
I know, it's very sad. Last week I have to actually, I'll confess in front of 75 people. The reason that I have to leave in 45 minutes is because I had a flight this morning and I got all the way to the airport, which was an hour and 10 minutes. And I got to the thing and I went to grab my wallet and my wallet was not with me. It was at home. And so yeah, I had to be like, Dad, can you come drive me back an hour and a half to get the wallet? Anyway, so I have a later flight today. We're doing a yacht mastermind tomorrow, which is gonna be really fun with a bunch of our forward coaching clients going out on the boat for 8 hours. And then speaking of that, on Saturday, do we have any slots? I think we have one slot maybe for a photo workshop in Miami. And where it's hands-on learning actually the photography. So if you want that one slot, it's $497 and you can email hello@replaunch.com and just say like, Eli said to email about the link and we'll send it to you. hello@repp launch.com. Anyway, I was saying a lot to get away from the fact that I left my ID at home this morning. Back into it, 10 to 20K. Big
Not
mistake.
hiring fast enough, or not preparing to hire and thinking that you need to be. I think it's the gratification of like the stuff that you did to get to 10K or a little bit above, and you thinking that you need to do more work in order to continue to earn more, and not working smart. So, thinking that hiring somebody or hiring more people is going to make your money less, when in reality, it's just going to allow you to free up your time to use that to get more clients and get that revenue even higher. So that's something that I've seen a lot with people like afraid of hiring, basically.
A lot of people get stuck between 10 and 20K a month. And I understand that sounds funny if you're not there. You're like, man, I'd love to be stuck there. But, stuck is stuck. And, it's stuck in a fairly busy phase. Like if you're going to get stuck with a team that, is great and that you can count on, and so waiting too long. That's probably the biggest one. Waiting too long to hire, not preparing. So around 15K a month is when we recommend getting that first photographer on a part-time basis. But you don't start at 15 and you don't start at 20, right? You start at 10 around there. And even before then, kind of laying the foundation. How can you legally hire? What's that going to look like when they shoot? How are you going to train them? So you set that up. And yeah, I would say, I don't know if you have anything specific on that stage, Rod.
No, it's just what Chris said in the comments, and I'll see that people, their business can be efficient. They scale it up. It gets monstrously chaotic. They're super busy and they just won't have that time to properly hire. So they'll be like, you come here, come here. And they'll try to hire photographers because it's convenient, but those are the ones more likely to try to, I saw someone comment, like, how do you avoid someone trying to take your clients? This first one of many things is don't hire photographers. You can teach real estate media to somebody that just has two hands, so you're good to go. So it's sometimes I'll see people, they're so busy that they don't have the time to hire, and they don't think that we can help them hire, because our first goal with someone back there in that situation is getting their time back. Just get enough to chisel away, do the next thing, chisel away, do the next thing, and just keep chiseling away time back in your life. But most people will hire inefficiently. They'll hire not probably the best fit. They'll bring them in. It'll make life more chaotic. And they'll say they did that for 3 to 4 months. And then they're back to square one again, because they waited, like Kenny said, they waited till they're super busy. Then they started it, instead of knowing that line is coming, preparing before that. So when that point comes, you click the green light, the person's there, boom. Right. So I think it's just, how do you know until you know the data, until you track all that? So again, it's data. It comes back to, at every stage, making data-driven decisions as well, it seems. But yeah, that's the big one.
It's not funny, but like, how many times we've seen people do that exact thing where they hire for 4 months and then they lose clients because they didn't train or hire well. And then it was more work for them. So they go, I just can't, my clients don't like it, I can't scale. And it's like, no, you did it wrong, and again, I did it wrong. So like, this isn't your bad and everybody else. Like,
it's always awkward to tell someone that too. And they're like, oh, I hired before. It's just, I don't want to do it again, because it's just, I don't think it works in my area. I'm just like, it's always like is there any possibility that maybe you did it you could do it better. You know, I can't remember what I say. So it's got to be like the nicest kind of way, but it's like, are you sure you did it right? And it's like, unless you know, or someone's told you, you are finding these things out and hiring. I would say the 10 to 20 grand a month is where I see the biggest pivotal one, like big. It's where like mistakes are bigger now. Your time is more valuable at this point. The mistakes are more impactful at this point, and just figuring out the hiring process is a grueling one. So I would say just being very methodic, very intentional about that process, and doing that before you're super busy is the,
well, and I think if by the time you've built your business to 10 to 20K a month, you've learned what hard work does for you and you like it, right? You made a lot of money. I mean, you're making good money. There's more to be made, obviously, but like 10, 20K is pretty good. And so there's two things that happen. One, you've reinforced to yourself that hard work creates more money, and it does to a point, right? You have to do the right thing eventually. So that's belief number one. And then belief number two is, well, if I'm making 15K working this hard, it's going to be double the amount of work working 30. And I don't know if I want that. It's not true. That's not based in anything, right? I would say it's easier. The bigger your business gets, it's much easier to run it from a workload standpoint. Now, sometimes there are periods where you have to work a lot, but if you do things correctly, as your business grows, you do less of the things that you're not good at and more of the things that you are good at. And usually you enjoy those things more. So it feels less like work. And then also, when you have a bigger team, like let's say you have like 15 people on your team, you kind of lose the ability to make a lot of impact yourself right now. You have to actually learn to work through other people. So it's like a different type of work. And I mean, it's harder in some ways, easier in some, but the lie to tell yourself would be like, man, it's just easier to be at 15. I don't want to have to worry about hiring. Like, I promise you it's not easier. So far, I've never been like, darn, this is worse when my business has grown. Not just from a money perspective, like from a what you get to do perspective. And the only time you'll hear people say that is when they did it wrong. So when you hear somebody that's like, oh, I did that, it didn't work, or like, yeah, my business sucked at 30K, you have to nicely translate that as like that's where they messed it up. And their peak was the point they messed it up, right? That's why it was the peak, because that was the farthest they could get. And they just were in, of course, they're not going to like that because that's when it started going the other way. So, always hiring people when you're at that phase. Again, we're doing this phase by phase, right? Because there's different mistakes at different levels. The mistake would be not hiring by the time you're, 15 to 20K. Huge mistake. And I'm not saying like, we hear people, Eli, does that mean I should be consistent for 8 months at 15K? No, that's literally not going to happen, right? You're just going to flatline your business. Like the first month that you just kiss 15K, like hire somebody, right? And they're part-time, so you don't lose money if you don't send them to shoots. You set expectations with them properly. Such a good unlock for your business. Hiring is just the best, and it's more fun. You get to work with cool people if you hire right.
14 minutes.
14 minutes. The good news is the stage is like they graduate to bigger revenue things here. So 20 to 50 is the next one. The reason I match 20 to 50 is because by the time you get to 50K, you can't be doing any shooting yourself. And you theoretically want to even get the admin work off your plate when you're at 50. So between 20 to 50 is all about learning how to work through other people and build other people. You go from being the star player to like the coach, and your job is to build the people that build the business. And so that means getting more and more photographers. You're going to have 5 or so by the time you're doing 50K a month. You have to have trained and ramped and hired 5 photographers and have them all running efficiently. Then you also need to hire an admin that can take those phone calls off your plate and do that good customer service that you did. And so I would say one mistake at this stage is staying shooting longer than you should. It's easy for you to fix stuff and just go shoot it, but you really need to build a business that requires you not to do that. And then I think another one at this stage is just not being careful about profit. It's really easy to make more revenue without making more profit. So you need to have sort of like a money model in place that ensures that as your business grows, you're not going to spend more. It's something, we talk a lot about with REPP video editing, with Norman and Young, with REPP. Like I was talking with Kenny about this earlier. Like we're looking at our money model and saying like, yeah, if we gain these new clients and hire these people, are we just doing it for free? Or are we actually having more bottom line? And so again, it's back to strategy. I don't know if you guys want to add anything on that.
I had something I lose it in 5 minutes.
I mean, like, yeah, it's about intentional work at that point, and like reframing the way that you've been working in the past, and just literally just looking at your time specifically and choosing what to do. I would say, like, yeah, focusing on profit and like actually like having meaningful work. Like, am I doing this specifically to, like we were talking, like for money, or we're just doing this for because it's easy, or is this just busy work? And so just being intentional a lot with what you're doing and how you use up your time.
Um, well, moving on to, we'll do the last one for now is 50 to 100K. Not that that's the last, and don't think 100. I think it's not actually, for those of you guys that are like in the, 50 to or 20 to 70. I think one thing I wish that was different is I thought that 100K a month was like the biggest business of all time. And I've said this on lives before, and I love this stat, but it's basically, like, so 100K a month is 1.2 million a year, right? Which is a decent sized business, but a small business, as defined by the Small Business Administration, there's slightly different categories, but is less than 40 million a year in revenue is considered a small business. So theoretically, you could be doing, 3-4 million a month and still be considered a small business. And so I think, like, just to kind of do the 50 to 100K stage, like optimizing and not dreaming in like a, fairy tale, who knows what happens, but like thinking a little bit more about what you're actually trying to build. Cause you're the type of person that can build a business to 50 or 100K a month. You can build it a lot past that. It only gets easier in a way. In some things it does, some things it doesn't. So I'd say the biggest mistake there is just like starting to feel like you're, big shot, and acting like it, like you're at ground floor in the best way possible. There's so much up. I'll just give you something kind of like broke my understanding the other day. I had the chance, I obviously have a coaching business, but I believe in it as well. So I had the chance to fly from LA to Virginia on a jet with this guy who was putting a mastermind together, and the flight cost me 15K. So it was like, I put some money in just to fly on this flight. And, I got a thing or two, but one of the biggest things I got, I was sitting next to a guy, and I don't even know if I've told you this, Rod. I think I have, but he had a business, and it was a business that involved basically he was young too, like, late 20s, early 30s. I'd probably say early 30s, maybe 33. He'd been doing it since he was like 16. So a long while. He basically just bought like companies that were going out of business. He bought the IP and the websites and stuff like that, and he would use them. And he was making about $3 million a month in profit, okay, on a $10 million a month business. And I was just like, excuse me, like that's so much more than I could, like $3 million a month in net income, right? So he was generating 10 million, $120 million a year. And if you think about $120 million a year, it's still like there's so many businesses that are bigger than. So I'm not trying to like make it seem like it's just, you just got to think big. Like, yes, that's part of it. But like part of it is just genuinely knowing that like you just have more to go. And I think when you start to feel like a big shot is when you make stupid decisions. And so just kind of having, Amazon has this famously, is they have a day one mentality. Like, this is day one of the business. Like, what are we doing? We're not getting lazy. We're not getting bloated. We're not getting too like arrogant or prideful. That'll kill you. Ego will destroy you, whether it's pride based, which is like, I'm the best, or it's ego, more I'm fearful. Both those things will destroy your business. And so, yeah, sorry about the WD-40 chair. It's this one that's bad. Anyway. Well,
we got what, 9 minutes?
Yeah, but it's like, here's the deal. It has to be like 9 minutes. I'm pressing end stream, because if I don't, I'm going to get an Uber too late. I'm going to miss 2 flights in one day.
Okay, we can't have that happen. Okay, so let's just try to see how fast we can answer questions, like speed challenge, because we have some from Andrew that Andrew talked to some people that I want to answer. Then obviously
Pin him.
He says they're on. Andrew's commenting. I see him commenting. Ego's not your ego. There you go.
Oh, I like that. And then I was like, that's our Andrew. That's even better.
From Jen, and yeah, that's our Andrew. So let's get the ones Andrew has. He has one from Conrad that's, concerned about building a business around a 60-hour work week and getting enough income coming in within around 1 to 3 months to replace his job. Is that a
pinnable question, or just I gotta use my?
Wondering. When I read it out loud, I was like, hold on. I guess it's more answering the concern of, is it possible for someone that's working a 60-hour work week to come in and with that lack of time be able to replace their income? And I actually can answer that question really quickly too. It does come down to the math. Like, how much time do you have outside of that 60? How many shoots can you do? How much money do you need to make per month? Do you have enough time in the, do you have enough time to do the amount of shoots to make that money? Then from there, to replace your job in 1 to 3 months, that's a pretty big goal. We've seen people do that, but I don't want to be like, come on down, let's do it. but we have seen people get to that level. It just depends. We don't know what that number is though. If it's like 40 grand a month, then I don't want to say come on down. But if it's like 4 grand a month or 5 grand a month, we've seen people do that in 3 months. Yes, but it's hard. It's not common in 3 months. That takes someone that's going to put in the hustle. So that's just kind of my 2 cents there, just from what I know you'll say too, Eli. But
yeah, it's just all math. That's why we like to, I don't want to mislead anybody. If you're working 60 hours a week, you're going to have to work too. I mean, you're already working 10 hours a day. But yeah, plenty of people have done it, which is super cool. And
we had Brian Badillo. Remember, he within a year did a 30 grand month or something. He had 3 jobs starting off.
Yeah, 3 jobs,
one by one.
We
so I thought that
our
was
Uber already.
Second,
so we're not late.
Oh, okay. Second question is, well, I guess more. Yeah, well, what I just said kind of answers this next one too. It's like, how long does does it take to earn money? And we see people make $1,000 their first month. Some people take, do that in their 3rd or 4th month. It's if are you getting help
on the flip side
on your own? It depends on that.
10K in the first month. Do not count on that. If it happens,
crazy.
awesome.
Is that Mike?
Yeah, I mean, a couple people at this point.
Chris alone.
That's wild.
Chris, yeah. Did Chris do it? 8, maybe?
Yeah, Chris did it after moving, like the month that he moved.
That's right, he did.
Yeah, so we've seen this. So we've seen some things. So it's just
anything's possible.
So it's just jump in and find out. Third question is, and I see it a lot too. Someone saying it's still snowing, it's raining, or they'll say it's snowing and just kind of waiting till busy season happens and then jumping in versus getting work done now.
Yeah.
Then letting busy season hit harder. Do you see a lot of people like what do you do when snow hits? Basically, when it's like this time of year, when it's snowing like Colorado or let's say upstate New York.
They're still listing like if you look at pictures of homes for sale, there's homes with snow on the ground, right? Because that's just normal. There's just seasons. So don't let my advice, don't let it like the external make you think you should wait. Because like if you wait, you're gonna get $0. And then sure, maybe it is a little slower, but like it's always a good idea to start now would be my advice. And like you ask anybody who's built a 10K month business, they're never gonna be like, darn, I wish I waited, Like the only regret is almost always like I should have done it sooner. So I would just use their regret.
Perfect. That was the questions, rapid fire. And then I saw Jen in here and I told her to hop on here to ask, and I lost it. Oh gosh, Jen, please don't hate
Rob
me.
does his own like hold music.
I know we're pressed for time, and I'm like gonna do it wrong.
But I can even make you more stressed.
She basically asked what are the numbers? Yeah. Oh gosh. What are the numbers that we track? It was basically what do we track? And what mistakes do you commonly see people not tracking? Basically, she was asking.
So the numbers we track, it depends a little bit on the size of your business you're at, but obviously the main one. So revenue and profit and expenses. That's how you kind of calculate profit, revenue minus expenses. Obviously, we calculate average order value. We calculate the number of clients that you worked with, the number of shoots that you did. And these are for each time period, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, right? We calculate unique clients, which is how many individual humans you worked with. So you may have done 30 shoots, but it was only for like 15 agents. And then there's some other like more specific metric pairs you can use if needed, especially as your business gets bigger. Like the ratio of, you could think like activated clients, like the ratio of clients you have in your database versus how many use you in a monthly period. So you can start pairing these metrics together to get more impactful stuff. So that's just like a heads up list, basically.
Beautiful. I still can't find it, but golly, you answered it before I could. So good stuff.
Well, I must go now. Kenny's laughing about
it. Next week will be 4 hours, y'all. I'm just kidding. No.
Next week will be an uninterrupted full hour and a half. So I appreciate everybody hanging out today. I hope we got all your questions answered. And
there's probably the least amount of questions we answered on a Q&A, but I feel like that was a lot of I feel like we answered a lot of questions people didn't know they're gonna have. We answered future questions and a lot of questions that people probably didn't think about. So I thought it was good.
It's a nice way to put it.
All right. Anyway, I'm just trying to make you late on purpose now.
I appreciate it. I need a little. I'm out of here. Well, thanks everybody. I'll put the link up on the next screen if you haven't talked with our team yet about your market. And obviously, we do coaching. We'd love the privilege of working with you to grow your business. So you can find the link to talk with our team on the next screen and just ask them your questions. Be honest with them. Tell them your situation. when it comes to like your working hours. Tell them what your goals are, like your fears, go to them and like, you can be like, hey, how's this going to work for me? And, we'll talk about it with you. Our job is to not sugarcoat it. It's actually one of our company values because like sometimes when people need to hear something hard, especially team members, I tend to sugarcoat it. So we've like built that into our company values. And so we'll shoot straight with you about, the different things. If you're in an area where it's not going to work, we'll tell you. And yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate you guys all being here and watching. And I'm going to try not to miss my second flight of the day. So talk to you soon. Hopefully we get to see you inside of coaching, and we'll see you later. I'm still trying to find the end screen here. There it is. Good night, everybody. See you later.
Bye, everybody. Safe travels, Eli.
Thank you. Where's the music? Trying to find it.
Play that guitar riff like you did earlier. That was nice. Someone threw in some AC/DC, I heard.
See ya.